I see that it's 4:01, just a minute after 4 o'clock Mountain Time. And with that, I'm going to introduce our presenter this week. We have Bridgette Rowe who's going to share a little bit about herself and about some great programming happening. Bridgette.
Hello, my name is Bridgette, as Joey said, and I'm the Family Consumer Science Educator in Ada County, which is located here in Boise. And my areas of expertise where I lead are nutrition, health, and food safety. I do apologize, I'm having a little trouble with my slide deck, so I'm just going to show a PowerPoint. So the areas that I work in, I do in food safety. I lead a master food safety program here in Ada County that reaches, right now I have about 35 volunteers that get certified in food safety. So they learn how to safely can, freeze, dry, and preserve food in the home. And then they're certified to go out and teach in their communities. It was really fun last night. I had a group of about 12 people here and a family of 5. So some teenagers and their parents that were learning how to safely can. The other area that I'm in is health, and the main area that I program that I lead is the diabetes prevention program, which is a year-long program designed to help people who are pre-diabetic become not diabetic by living a healthy lifestyle and learning different things throughout the year. I also do a lot of youth programming where I do 4-H youth yoga, which is really fun, and teaching kids about doing yoga and being healthy, and lots of other things. I do a lot of community education and other programs. So today I'm going to talk
Bridgette,
about,
maybe before we get started, I'm going to launch a poll for you that asks individuals a little bit about themselves.
Thank you.
So you should be seeing a You and I Together poll asking you some questions. If you could scroll down and answer those.
Thanks, Joey.
You betcha. So hopefully you're seeing that poll now. And as people are answering that, we have some great responses in our chat about where people are from. I chuckle a little bit that John and Irma had shared they are from Boise, and not just Boise, but a warm Boise. I would agree with that. We have Nampa, we have southeastern Idaho, Middleton, Marsing, some great places. Got some good information coming in.
Great. Looks like we have 3, 4, 5. We have about 5 people. Anyone else going to respond? Okay, Joe, you want me to go ahead and end the poll?
Sure. Okay, Bridgette, it's back to you.
Okay, sorry about that. So it looks like we have a couple of youth and a couple of adults. So it's kind of a split group today. Stop sharing. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Okay, so as we're getting started today, we're going to talk about food on the go. And I'm wondering how many of you have road trip or camping trips or hiking trips planned this summer? If you can just type into the chat. If you have a trip planned and where you're planning on going.
Might take them just a little bit of time to type that in, because we have some big groups joining us as well. So they're collecting information from that group and typing that in.
Okay, we've got someone going to Cascade, Yellowstone, Stanley, Wallace, Hamilton, Montana, several camping trips. Well, that's exciting. I know I'm going to be going camping up in the Sawtooth this weekend, and then at the end of July, I'll be going to the Rubicon on a big Jeep trip, which is kind of exciting. So it's great to hear you guys are going places. Oh, Gooding, Idaho to see grandma, Utah to see cousins. How exciting. And what have you guys thought about as far as these trips? What are some of the things that you're planning on doing or going? Are you going to be staying in like a hotel or in a camper or in a tent? Okay, someone in a tent. Woohoo. Airbnb, in a cabin. In a tent. Tent at grandma and cousins. So they're putting you outside where they stay inside, right? A wedding, camper. Okay, there we go. So lots of different ways. Some people are going to be in a camper, some in a tent, some in an Airbnb. My next question to you is, are all of you going to take food with you on your trip? Okay. So it looks like everybody is planning on taking some food with them for snacks on the way, or maybe they have to take entire meals for the whole time, all of these things. So this is what we're going to talk about today in my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. And I'm going to share sound. Okay. Can you see my screen?
We can, Bridget. It's still it's not in presentation mode yet. There we go.
Can you see it now?
Yes, you're good to go.
So to get started, so this is tips on the go. So really talking to you about what you need to think about, plan, and prepare for food on the go. So did someone say road trip? And if so, what do you need to plan for? So what do you need to do? You need to plan before you go. So what do you see here in this picture? Flat tire, no problem. I packed the jack first. So if you can see, when you're thinking about planning for a road trip or food on the go, you really do need to plan. You need to think through things. This person might have a problem getting to their jack if it's under everything that's underneath that pile of stuff. They may have brought a couple too many things, right? So what's the first step? So when you're planning for food on the move, whether it's camping or hiking, you really need to do some menu planning. You need to plan out what you're going to eat, when you're going to eat it, and you need to develop a grocery list. There's lots of different ways. If you see the pictures here, you can do a meal planner where you plan out every single day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's no place for snacks on here. And then to the right, you can kind of put together a shopping list or grocery list. Some people just take a blank piece of paper and start doing it. And then other people, if you see on the right here, I'm sorry, this picture is a little fuzzy, they use applications now. You can actually use things on your phone to plan out menus and grocery lists, but it's really important that you do this step first. So what are you going to eat? How many days you're going to be gone? How many meals? How many people? Are there any allergies? You need to plan for all of that first. If you see here, you also need to maybe do some research. So thinking about your food on the go, maybe type into the chat, are any of you planning on eating out while you're gone? Or are you going to have to bring all of your meals? One of the things you can do, if you're going to bring all of your meals, you might do some research. If you look to the left here, there's lots of things on what are some convenient, easy snacks, lunches, dinners to take on the go, whether it's for a camper or if it's for hiking. There's lots of things on the internet and lots of tip sheets out there on how to pack light and what to pack. If you're on the road on a road trip in a car and staying in hotels or Airbnb or cabins and you're planning on eating out, something you might research are, what are the local restaurants? A lot of your applications, your map applications in your phone, you can actually type in local restaurants and you can look at them and look at the ratings and see, are they family friendly? Are they expensive? Do some of that research first. It might help you down the road. I've even looked up restaurants and then actually called them to see, do you take reservations? Are you still open? I've found that sometimes I find a restaurant on the internet then when we go to the restaurant, it's actually closed. So it's always good to kind of plan ahead, do some research. And then I threw in here, this is the Idaho Farmers Market Association. You know, maybe one of the things I did one year with my kids, we were going through town and we stopped for a break and there was a farmer's market going. And so we went into the farmer's market and we actually ate lunch there. We picked up some groceries. It was actually really fun. So I'd encourage you, especially during the summer, to see if there's any local farmers markets or farm stands. That's just kind of a fun thing to do with your family. And it can also be a way to get some really fresh local produce. So that's another thing you can do. So before you go, do a little research, plan out your meals, plan out your snacks, then find out, you know, any meals that you're not going to do on your own. What are some of the options in that area? The other thing you need to do is to prepare and prep. And just know that there could be some challenges ahead. You know, some of the things to think about when you're on the go is, do I have enough ice? Is my refrigerator working? What happens if my refrigerator breaks down? What can I do to just ensure that I'm going to have that food on the move and it's going to be safe and it's going to be easy to prepare and ready for my family? So some of the things you need to do, or for yourself if you're traveling solo, is really prepare and prep. And the best way to do that is to start with the 4 steps to food safety that we always teach, whether it's on the go or in your kitchen. You need to think about these 4 steps: clean, separate, cook, and chill. So the first step, clean, I also put in there and check. And this picture, I hope you're not too grossed out by it, but you know, you always want to go in your camper, especially, or your coolers, anything that you're going to be using on the go, you want to check it. Check your refrigerator. A lot of people know you plug in your camper the day before, or maybe even the week before, because if you have a refrigerator or freezer in your camper that's not working, you need to get it fixed. And that could take up to a week, sometimes longer, to get the parts. So then you have to go to plan B, which is, say your fridge in your camper or RV isn't working. Then you might have to go to the cooler, right? Go out to the garage and you find your cooler's pretty dirty. Well, you need to scrub it and clean it and dry it. Maybe you're hiking. Check your backpack, check your water bottles, get them all clean and ready to go several days before your trip. Because, you know, lots of times if you're in a hurry and you go to grab that cooler and it's dirty, someone might skip that step or not clean it enough, and you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that everything is clean, everything is working, that you have the ice packs, the boxes. One of my favorite things is when I would go to grab, sometimes I just use our lunch boxes for our summer trips. And I hate to admit it, but one year I went to grab a lunch box and my kid had not gotten rid of his last lunch. So needless to say, that lunch box went right into the garbage can. And that was kind of a waste. So always make sure to plan and prep, clean and check your fridges, your coolers, your water bottles. Make sure you have ice packs, any lunch boxes or bags, whether it's bags for backpacking or storage bags that you put your food in, reusable. Make sure you've got everything ready several days ahead. So the next step, separate. So I put this little image in here. Really important to separate your foods because bacteria are hitchhikers. In other words, we don't want cross-contamination. So separate means, and this is how it goes, cross-contamination is how bacteria spreads. So you want to keep raw meat, poultry, and seafood and their juices away from ready-to-eat foods. You want to make sure to use only one cutting board for raw meat, poultry, seafood, and other, and then another cutting board for salads and ready-to-eat foods. And you also want to make sure to wash your cutting boards and knives between uses, because we don't want the bacteria that was on the raw meat, poultry, seafood to cross over onto the fresh, ready-to-eat foods. The bacteria that's on the meat, you're going to cook that meat, which we're going to talk about in a minute, or the poultry, and it's going to be safe. But if that touches the raw vegetables that you just eat fresh, then you've just introduced bacteria. And we don't want to get sick. Foodborne illness will really ruin your trip, and we don't want to do that. So be sure to keep the raw meat, poultry, and seafood and their juices apart from other food items in your grocery cart, also in your refrigerator, in your coolers, in your backpacks. You just need to make sure you separate. So, and then in the fridges or the coolers, store raw meat, poultry, and seafood in a container or plate so its juices can't drip on other foods. And also you usually tend to put the meat down on the bottom. So if it does drip, it's not dripping onto the fresh produce. Okay, your next step, cooking. So whether you're in the kitchen or you're on the go, if you're camping, if you're hiking, you still need to make sure that you're cooking your foods to safe internal temperatures. So you want to make sure you use a food thermometer to make sure you reach the correct internal temperatures. So have a food thermometer with you if you're going to be cooking raw meat and vegetables as well as egg dishes. So apply the heat chart. So you want to make sure that you cook them to a safe minimum internal temperature. So if you see here for beef, veal, lamb, steak, and roast, it's 145. For fish, it's 145. Pork, 145. Ground beef, veal, lamb, pork, it's 160. Eggs dishes, it's 160. Turkey, chicken, duck, whole pieces, and ground, it's 165. So be sure to bring the food safety thermometer with you and check your foods if you're heating them up. And also note that if you're backpacking or hiking, make sure you check any freeze-dried foods you have and follow directions. Oftentimes, if you have freeze-dried raw eggs or some dairy products, you do have to heat it up. So be sure to note that and read the directions of that food. Or if you freeze-dried the food yourself, make sure that you followed proper handling techniques with the raw foods that you freeze-dried, and then also with reconstituting them. Okay, the next step is to make sure you use a refrigerator thermometer. You want to keep your fridge at 40 or below and your freezer at 0 or below. And this also is true of your coolers, your camp refrigerators. You need to keep cold foods cold and hot foods hot. So make sure you're using a refrigerator thermometer and also a freezer in your freezer as well. Make sure you're keeping things below and keeping them nice and chilled. Okay, so at the end of this presentation, I will give you guys a chance to ask questions, but I'm going to launch this video and I'm hoping it works here. Joey, if you could let me know, that would be great.
You bet.
And if you can hear it. Are you able to see and hear it?
Not yet. It's trying to launch, I believe. We're seeing a gray screen.
Okay. I'll wait a moment here. See if this works. I'm going to stop share. Let me go ahead and try to share again. And this video is from OARS, which is a national association of rafting companies that has lots and lots of experience with packing coolers for long travels, long raft trips. And they did a great job of showing how to pack a cooler. So I wanted to share this with you. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, we can see an image of them putting a tent up, but
Okay.
nothing is playing.
Could you hear the sound?
We could hear the sound, yes.
As an outdoor adventure outfitter, OARS has over 50 years of experience keeping food and drinks cold for days or weeks at a time. Here are a few of the tips and tricks to help keep the food and ice lasting on your next adventure. First, bring your cooler inside and open it up a day before you pack to bring down the interior temperature. Line the bottom of your cooler with block ice. Then put a protective barrier like plastic or foam on the top to protect the food from the ice. The layer closest to the ice will be your meat. Make sure everything is packaged in a sealed bag or container and consider freezing it ahead of time if you're headed to hot weather or will be out for an extended trip. Pack as tightly as you can so as to eliminate any empty space. Next, pack your dairy. When purchasing, go for the resealable containers so that they don't leak and make a mess when you return them to your cooler. The top layer in your cooler will be produce. Keep the loose items in a crate so they stay together at the top, and wrap your leafy vegetables with a paper towel to absorb the extra moisture, which will help keep it fresh. The top layer is a foam pad to take up additional airspace and to keep the cold air in. Close your cooler tightly, making sure it has a nice seal, and remember to close the drains. If you can, have a separate cooler for your drinks. Because the drink cooler is open the most frequently and consistently exposed to warm air, it will melt your ice, so it's best to keep it separate from the food. Popular opinion says not to drain your cooler because the melted ice water is colder than the air you introduce by draining it. And I agree, you should not drain your drink cooler. However, I do recommend draining your food cooler so you can keep your cooler clean rather than soggy. The last tip is to keep your cooler out of direct sunlight and to avoid storing it in a hot vehicle until you are ready to drive. There are a lot of techniques for organizing your cooler beyond this configuration. If you're going on a longer trip or have multiple coolers, consider organizing by the type of meal or by the day it will be eaten. Happy camping!
Okay, let's stop that. Okay, well, I hope you guys found that video useful. Did anybody pick up any new tips or have any questions about food safety on the go? I found it very interesting that they talked about, and it's often true with both your home, and I'm sorry, I'm not sure, I'm getting a phone call. I don't know how to get that turned off so you don't hear it. They often talk about how you have to keep the cooler as full as possible because open space. That's also true with freezers and refrigerators. You don't want to pack it too tight, but you do want it very full. You also, if possible, like she showed, to separate it away from the ice. And, you know, there's lots of coolers and things out that you can buy, fancy tools, but you could also use maybe some things you have at home. I know a lady that used her empty ice trays because she no longer used them, you know, for ice at home because she had an ice maker. So she would put her ice trays on top of her layer of ice and use that as a barrier between her ice and her food. The other tips that I have that weren't included in that video is I have found that blocks of ice sometimes hold up better than cubed ice. So if you can sometimes also use frozen water bottles to line the bottom of your cooler, they fit a little bit differently in between things, which is kind of nice. Some other things to keep in mind is that frozen, you need to try to keep it frozen. She talked about having your meats and things frozen ahead of time, and that does help. It helps keep them cooler and not thaw out as quickly. I see a question. Don't drain the food cooler to keep food from getting soggy. Ice water is cooler than ice, so don't drain, the drink cooler. Very nice. Any other questions you guys might have or anything you might have learned today about food on the go that you hadn't thought about before?
I think John and Irma were sharing what they learned that was new.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
And you are welcome to unmute if you want to share, or you're also welcome to type into chat. I think, Bridget, is why people are either typing in or reflecting and thinking on this, just really that it takes some planning, not to wait till that last minute, because food safety is so important. That should be moved a little bit higher on that priority list when you're planning on going someplace.
And I know, some of this is, I know for myself, beginning to use RVs and campers and go on trips the last couple of years, I've had to learn along the way that, it's really unfortunate when you find out your fridge or your freezer is not working. And so then you have to go to plan B and have coolers ready. And so like Joey said, that planning and preparing tip is the number one thing that I think is the most important, is really start planning a couple days ahead of time. That way, if there's any curveballs, like something's not working, or even, I've known people that they put their packing gear up and then they get it out for the summer and, they find out something's missing or something's broken. If you're hiking, and hiking on the go is a whole nother art form and takes a whole lot of preparation to live off the grid, but they have things like water sanitation tools, filtration systems. They have little portable stoves. So something to always check when you're getting ready to go is not just your coolers, your backpacks, but also what you're going to cook with, and make sure you have the gas that you need, the fuel that you need, and that all your appliances are working. Clean, separate, cook, and chill. I did notice something happened on my PowerPoint that the chill, because that should have showed a chill slide too, but it didn't come up. So I apologize for that. But those are the 4 steps to food safety. Clean, separate, cook, and chill. And chill is both before and after. So keep in mind, you need to chill the food before you cook it. You need to keep it at cold. And then you also need to chill any leftovers and eat them within 3 days. And especially when you're on the go and if you're using coolers, because temperatures could be harder. But, I am one of those people, and I do recommend that you get a little fridge thermometer and also put it in your cooler, especially if you're feeding large groups or even just your family. Having that food thermometer in there is really going to help you know what your cooler's at and if you need to get more ice. That's another thing to plan for on the road, is sometimes you'll have to restock your ice if it's going to be a longer trip, a longer road trip. So I did want to share today also, I think you guys were able to get the tip sheet. I'm going to bring it up so that you can see it. And here we go, which kind of goes over some of the things that I went over today really quickly. I never know how fast I'm going to go. And so this tip sheet really can help you kind of are you able to see it?
We are, Bridget.
Okay, so again, it talks about menu planning. It gives you a link out to My Plate where you can use these different planning tools. It also talks to you about the 4 steps of clean, separate, cook, and chill, just to remind you to not let food sit out for over 2 hours, only 1 hour on hot days. It talks about wrapping meat, keeping things separated, and all of those things, just to kind of help remind you.